So now we're going to talk about the AFC playoff scenarios. So this shouldn't be too long because the Chiefs clinched the number 1 seed. The Steelers and the Bills clinched their division. And the Ravens, now we're going to get into the wild card spots. The Ravens clinch with a win or a Cleveland and Indianapolis loss. So the Browns clinch with a win or an Indianapolis loss, or a Tennessee loss, a Miami win, and a Baltimore win. The Colts clinch the AFC South with a win and a Tennessee loss. The Colts also, they just clinch a playoff spot if they win and they need Baltimore to lose, or Cleveland to lose, or Indianapolis to lose. I said that wrong. The Colts clinch with a win in Baltimore loss, or with a win in Cleveland loss and a win in Miami loss. The Dolphins clinch with a win or Baltimore loss, or Cleveland loss, or Indianapolis loss. And the Titans clinch the division with a win or an Indianapolis loss, and they clinch a playoff berth with a Baltimore or Miami loss. So it seems like if the Titans win, they're in and they clinch their division. The Ravens, Browns, and Dolphins all control their own destiny. If they win, they're in. The only team that needs another team to lose is the Colts. The Colts need to win, and they need Baltimore to lose, or the Cleveland to lose, or Miami to lose. So they need teams to lose. There's scenarios there, and I've seen like this stat that if they win and they don't make the playoffs, they're the first 11-5 team to miss the playoffs in NFL history.
Wow.
Yeah, they'll be 11-5 and miss the playoffs. And these are the percentages right now. The odds to make the playoffs: the Titans are at 92%. The Ravens are at 88%. The Browns are at 76%. The Dolphins are at 73%. And the Colts are at 71%. So I'm thinking it's between the Browns, Dolphins, and Colts, whether who's going to get into that final playoff spot. So in your opinion, who's going to win the wild card and who's going to make it out of those teams?
Well, let me ask you before we start. I don't know if you've heard anything about this. I couldn't find anything. Do you think the Bills are going to play their starters week 17? Because the Chiefs have the 1 seed locked up. And I think the Bills have the 2 seed locked up, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't think they do. But I've also heard that
the Steelers are sitting.
The Steelers are sitting some of their starters. We're not sure about the Bills. We know the Colts are going to beat the Jaguars. Yeah. And we know the Titans should beat the Texans.
And we don't know the status of Deshaun Watson either in that game. I know he got hurt late in week 16. And although he said he's going to play, it would be very wise for the organization to give him a rest this week.
And the Ravens are facing the Bengals, so they'll win. So that's the only one that's up in the air because the Browns versus Steelers. The Steelers are sitting there, some of their starters. The Browns probably going to win that game.
They should.
They should win that game. The Dolphins versus Bills. Maybe they only sit Josh Allen. I think if that defense is out there, they can still beat Miami.
Yeah.
It's tough.
I wish I knew what the Bills were going to do. It would make it a much easier decision, in my opinion. If they were sitting a decent amount of their starters, I would have the Dolphins winning. But if they play their entire team and they go out there and they treat it like a Week 7 game, I have the Bills winning that game. As much as it pains me to say it, because I've been super high on the Dolphins, the Bills have just looked so good the past few weeks. Like literally up there with the Chiefs. I have them the biggest competition, at least in the AFC, to the Kansas City Chiefs. So I would have the Bills winning that game if they played their starters. And as a result, I would have the Titans winning the division, and then I would have Baltimore at the 5 seed, Cleveland at the 6, and Indianapolis at the 7.
This is tough. I picked the Colts to win the division in the beginning of the year. I think if they didn't blow the lead against the Steelers, they probably should be there. And you mentioned that point about the Bills. I think that's an excellent point. The Bills right now, the only 3 losses they've had are 2 of them have gotten rescheduled, the Titans and the Chiefs game, and one of them was on that Hail Mary against the Cardinals.
Yeah.
So most of their games that they've played, they weren't bad losses. They're one of the better teams in the league, so if they do play their starters, they'll beat the Dolphins. I don't think that's a question. I'm going to pick the Colts to make the playoffs, and the team that's going to miss it is the Dolphins. And the Dolphins are going to miss the playoffs, and now going into the offseason, it's going to get a lot more foggy whether they should draft the quarterback or no. Because look, you benched Fitzpatrick because you thought Tua gave you the best chance to make the playoffs. Now, Tua has gotten benched twice already. And in one of those, Fitzpatrick leads you to a win. If the Raiders don't blow that game, the Dolphins don't control their destiny right now.
No.
Their playoff hopes are down the drain. The Colts probably have it locked up because they would have beat the Jaguars, no doubt about it. And that's all because of Fitzmagic. And now you're gonna start Tua week 17 after Fitzpatrick had that miraculous comeback. You're gonna start Tua, and if Tua doesn't win, and you guys miss the playoffs, and with the Texans getting a top 5 pick, they might draft a quarterback.
The Texans could be picking as high as 3, and who knows? Obviously, Trevor Lawrence is gonna go number 1. There's no question about that. But if the Jets go Sewell, or even if the Jets go quarterback, say they take Wilson or Fields at 2, say they take Lance at 2, there's going to be quarterbacks available at 3. Whether it's Fields, Wilson, Lance, there's going to be guys there. So it'll be enticing for the Dolphins. There's no question about it. And it's not going to be a fun offseason to be a Dolphins fan, that's for sure.
There's going to be a lot of question marks.
Everybody's bought in on Tua. And I like Tua too, and I want him to be the guy there. You know, I want to believe in him, but we'll talk about it later. I do have my question marks after what's happened the past few weeks.
And so that's why I think the Colts, I want to believe that they'll make it, but obviously, realistically, the percentages are against them. They're amongst all the teams, they have the lowest percentage to make it. But, man, I just hope they do because Phillip Rivers has had a tremendous season. So has Frank Reich. Their defense, I think it'll be a shame. And honestly, there's nobody but to blame but themselves because they blew the game against the Steelers. They were up 17, and the Steelers came back. But that being said, I think I have the Titans winning the division. I have the Browns getting in, the Ravens getting in, and the Colts getting that last spot, in the Dolphins looking from the outside, looking in, and missing the playoffs.
We had the same exact scenarios. I will say, though, if over the next couple of days, the Bills come out and say they're either resting Josh Allen or they're resting a handful of their starters, I would feel much more confident in saying the Dolphins win that game and make the playoffs over. That would mean that they get all the way up to the 5 seed. They would be the 5 seed, Baltimore at 6, and Cleveland at 7. So that would be the game to keep an eye on. That's my game of the week. I'm very excited to see what happens with that one just because it changes so much in that AFC playoff picture.
And the smartest thing to do for the Bills is to sit Josh Allen.
Yeah.
And Matt Barkley against that defense, you don't trust that at all.
Exactly. And you trust that with Mason Rudolph at the helm, the Browns playing for a playoff spot are going to beat the Steelers, which means that you would be locked in at the 2 seed. So there's really no reason to put your guys out there against a Miami team that has everything to lose.
Unless, these are the 2 scenarios, unless you don't want to see your division rival get into the playoffs. But then again, this is just my opinion. You'd rather the Dolphins and the Colts in the playoffs. That's what I think.
I think that, and this is what I was going to say, either way, there's going to be a team on the outside looking in that is a no doubt surefire playoff team, and it's a shame. And either of those teams that gets in, whether it is the Colts or the Dolphins, they're not going to be a pushover matchup for any team.
Don't sleep on this scenario, too. The Browns could miss it, and the Browns have bad luck.
They have to play. Granted, Mason Rudolph is going to be starting. The Steelers are going to sit a couple guys. We just watched the Browns play the Jets, and they looked embarrassing.
I thought the Jets. I think the Jets are better than people give them credit for.
And I agree with you, but there's no reason the Browns, a playoff team, sitting at
with no receivers. There was nobody out there.
It's fair, but still, I don't think that there was any reason they should have lost that game. And, it's a mental thing, too. You just lost to the worst team in football, second worst team in football. I got to get used to saying that after the Jets.
I think people around the league think the Jets are not a bad team. They're just badly coached. Yeah. Their talent is there. John Franklin Myers is top 15 in pressure. Quentin Williams, we know he's a Pro Bowl level talent. Like, they get after the passer. We don't have edge rushers to finish it off. But in terms of pressure, we get a lot of pressure to the quarterback. And if you have no receivers, it makes it hard.
That cornerback room has been coming around. A lot of people haven't been seeing it, but Bryce Hall and Javelin Guidry have been very solid out there coming in their rookie season. So I agree. I don't think the Jets are as far away as people think, but any Adam Gase coached team with the season the Jets have had, a loss like that for the Browns, who have playoff aspirations, is a tough one to swallow. Now you've got to go play your division rival for a playoff spot. It's a lot mentally. Baker Mayfield, we know he's been, hit or miss so far in his career. So what Browns team is going to come out? There's so many question marks.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think for the Browns and the Colts, if they miss the playoffs, it's a disappointing season. For the Dolphins, it's not, because you made it farther than you thought you would, than everybody thought you would. Even though they would like to get into the playoffs, I don't think it's much of a disappointment as a 40-year-old Phillip Rivers and a Browns team that we all thought were a lock to make the playoffs at this point in the season.
Yeah, and if you're the Colts, if you're the Dolphins or any Dolphins fan, it will seem very disappointing at the time. But when you take a step back a month later and you look at the season, you're going to see a lot of successes. And now you're going into an offseason where you're going to have a top 5 pick at least. You're going to have another first rounder. You have great draft capital. You have money to spend. They're in very good shape for the next, foreseeable future.